Herzlich willkommen, liebe Zuschauer, zu einer weiteren Folge von Im Auge des Bruders mit Scott Ritter hier auf unserem YouTube-Kanal Gegenpol. Mein Name ist Monique Stegemann und in dieser Woche geht es um folgende Themen. Kommt die israelische Bodenoffensive in den Gazastreifen und was machen die US-Flugzeugträger-Kampfgruppen? Aus welchem Grund lässt Saudi-Arabien US-Außenminister Antony Blinken die ganze Nacht auf Kronprinz bin Salman warten? Und wird der Konflikt zwischen Israel und Hamas enden? Die israelische Armee steht kurz vor dem Einmarsch mit Bodentruppen in den Gazastreifen. Zur Vorbereitung führt die israelische Luftwaffe seit Tagen schwerste Bombenangriffe durch. Doch die Regierung von Benjamin Netanyahu zögert noch und gab als Grund schlechte Wetterbedingungen an. Doch israelische Beobachter gehen davon aus, dass Netanyahu Angst vor einer zweiten Front im Norden gegen die libanesische Hisbollah hat. Wie siehst du das? Wohin steuert dieser Konflikt zwischen Israel und was werden die USA mit ihren 2 Flugzeugträger-Kampfgruppen machen, die sie in die Region verlegt haben?
Well, let's be clear on a couple things. The air campaign that Israel is waging in Gaza has nothing to do with the ground campaign that people are talking about. It's not a preparatory fire for assisting the tactical and operational activities of the Israeli Defense Force. It's instead part of a policy that Israel's had in place for some time now, unofficially prior to 2006, but since 2006 officially, the Dahiya policy, mowing the grass. Disproportional use of force against civilians in an effort to seek to break their spirit so they no longer support the organizations like Hamas or Hezbollah. This is the policy. That's what's going on. Not a single target that's being hit has a military impact on Hezbollah or Hamas. Hamas is underground. Hamas has been burying itself for years now. All of their resources, their command and control, their logistics, they're all underground. Nothing's above ground. So everything Israel's bombing above ground is being done to bring harm to civilians, deliberately so. It's a war crime. So we need to point that out, that what Israel is doing is a massive war crime against the Palestinian civilians. And it's part of a policy, the official stated policy that's been known to everybody, including Germany, by the way, which just threw its weight behind the Israeli government. The Germany might want to acquaint itself with the Dahiya policy and see if that indeed matches the values that Germany purports to embrace. I would imagine it doesn't, but if it does, maybe I'm not so wrong when I say Germany isn't far removed from its Nazi past, because what the Israelis are doing against the Palestinians, this Dahiya policy, this collective punishment policy, is very much resembling the collective punishment of places like the Warsaw Ghetto by the Nazis before they annihilated the occupants. So, yeah, Germany, reflect on your history, reflect on your morals, reflect on what you purport to be, because supporting Israel doesn't reflect any of that. Now, as for going into Gaza, understand that Israel did this in 2014, and it didn't end well for Israel. They lost a lot of guys. It proved to be an extraordinarily difficult fight, and they eventually had to withdraw. They go into Gaza today. Again, one must realize that they're walking into an ambush that has been set by Hamas. Hamas planned this operation well in advance, every aspect of it. They knew what they were doing. They took the Israelis by surprise on October 7th, and by carrying out the violent actions that they did, they knew that Israel will have no choice but to mobilize and come in after them. It's what Hamas wants Israel to do. So Israel is setting itself up for defeat. They're going to walk into an ambush where Hamas will have the tactical and operational initiative, and it will cost Israel thousands of lives. And they know this. There's another problem, too. The problem is that the military doesn't want to do this. These are reservists. These are people who spent 2.5 years in the military, most recently not performing combat duties, but performing occupation duties in the West Bank, where Rather than learning how to close with and destroy the enemy through firepower and maneuver, they were beating up 10-year-old boys, bullying 15-year-old girls, and shooting unarmed old men. That's what the Israeli army did for the last decade. And so any reservist that's out there right now coming back on active duty is a reservist who understands what it means to be a brutal occupier, but they don't know anything about actual combat. And they're getting ready to go to war against a fanatical enemy who's been training to fight them from day one. And it's not just Hamas. If Hezbollah up north in Lebanon joins the fight, Israel can't beat Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the only Arab military force that has defeated Israel not once, but twice. They liberated southern Lebanon from the Israelis in 2000, and they fought the Israeli army to a standstill in 2006. Since that time, Hezbollah has not only expanded its military capabilities, but it has hardened them through, the forge of war. Hezbollah played a leading role in a lot of the fighting that's taken place in Syria over the course of the last decade. And the combat experience that's been accrued there would be invaluable going up against an Israeli military that lacks similar combat experience. As I said, the Israelis they aren't in the business of getting ready for real war. They're in the business of occupying the Palestinians. And so Hezbollah would not only defeat the Israeli army, but probably occupy much of northern Israel to include the Golan Heights and reaching the Sea of Galilee. And there's nothing Israel can do to stop them because they don't have a military capable of stopping them. So now we come to the United States. The United States recognizes this, understands that if Hezbollah gets involved, Israel won't be able to defeat them. So we're trying to intimidate Hezbollah with 2 aircraft carrier group and a 2,000-man strong amphibious ready group. We don't have the power to defeat Hezbollah either. So, we're setting ourselves up for failure. The only option here is for Israel to seek a negotiation with Hamas. It'll be very difficult for Israel to do politically, but they really have no other choice, because if they continue forward with an invasion of Gaza, A, they're going to lose that invasion. B, it's going to trigger a Hezbollah response, which C, will beat Israel up north. And then Israel will have no negotiating power. Right now, Israel can pretend to have some sort of military competency that it can fall back on. But if Israel allows itself to be humiliated by Hamas and Hezbollah both, that's the end of the myth of the unbeatable Israeli army.
Du hast es schon angesprochen. Laut Berichten der CNN hat die US-Regierung entschieden, 2000 Marines nach Israel zu entsenden. Diese Kampftruppe soll dann wohl den Auftrag erhalten, verschleppte US-Bürger aus dem Gazastreifen zu befreien, sollte die Hamas sie nicht freilassen. Wie kann man sich so eine Operation vorstellen? Und birgt sie nicht die Gefahr, dass es zu unvorhergesehenen Ereignissen führt? Man denke nur an die gescheiterte Operation Eagle Claw in Teheran 1980 oder den Anschlag auf die Marines in Beirut 1983.
Well, first of all, the U.S. Marines will not be used in Gaza at all. There's no reason for them to be used in Gaza. If any Americans are among those hostages, they can only be released through negotiation. The U.S. does not have the intelligence capabilities to gather the data necessary to support a hostage rescue mission. If there was a hostage rescue mission, it would not be carried out by the Marines. It would be carried out by U.S. Army Special Operations Forces from Delta Force or U.S. Navy Special Operations Forces from Dev Group or SEAL Team 6. The Marines have limited special operations capability. They can do non-combatant evacuations. They can do limited hostage rescue. They have a certain skill set. That skill set does not include going into a densely urban environment, carrying out, complex operations with insufficient forces. 2,000 Marines is not a lot of Marines, not when you're talking about Gaza. Israel mobilized 360,000. And I know the Marines are pretty good. I used to be one, but we're not that good. There are limitations to what can and can't be done. The Marines offer a force and readiness. Look, if there was an emergency situation where they had to go in for a limited duration operation in Gaza, they could do it. They could go in, do a job, get out. But what they can't do is occupy Gaza. What they can't do is do a house-to-house search for hostages in Gaza. There's just simply put not enough Marines to do that job. So I think this is more of a show of force than it is reality. The Marines will not get involved in ground combat in Israel, in Gaza, or in Lebanon.
Saudi-Arabien hat diese Woche US-Außenminister Antony Blinken brüskiert, als Kronprinz Mohammed bin Salman ihn die ganze Nacht hat warten lassen, bevor das Treffen dann am nächsten Morgen stattgefunden hat. Riad hat als Reaktion auf das israelische Vorgehen im Gazastreifen auch die weitere Normalisierung mit Israel ausgesetzt. Erleben wir hier einen weiteren Schritt im Abnabelungsprozess von Saudi-Arabien von den USA oder ist es nur ein Taktieren, um die sogenannte arabische Straße zu besänftigen?
Look, Saudi Arabia was very much looking forward to normalizations of relations with Israel. Saudi Arabia, like Kuwait, like the United Arab Emirates and others, recognize that the best path forward for the Gulf Cooperation Council, the Gulf Arab states, is to develop a good economic and political ties with Israel. Israel, has a tremendous amount of entrepreneurial people. They have a lot of technological driven companies, and the Gulf Arab states would like to partner with them. But they can't do so on the backs of the Palestinian people. There would have to be a solution that is acceptable to Palestine. And Saudi Arabia always said that. But so long as the Israeli occupation was passive, the Saudis could say, we'll deal with the Palestinian issue separately, but we'll continue down this path of normalization. But now the Palestinian issue has exploded in a way that can't be ignored. And Saudi Arabia is saying the obvious. Until that's fixed, there can be no talk about going forward with any normalization. And so that's what's happening. But it's worse than that, because normalization with Israel means that the Gulf Arab states were willing to accept the concept of Zionist Israel, the exceptional Israel, where you had a Jewish homeland exclusively in the Middle East. I think the aftermath of this conflict will show that the viability of a exclusively Jewish homeland in the Middle East that can only be had by exploiting the Palestinian population it's over. It can't be supported. So I think before Saudi Arabia re-enters into normalization discussions with Israel is going to have to reimagine itself. And this could be a problem. It could lead to civil war within Israel. There are factions in Israel right now that are violently opposed to one another because of Benjamin Netanyahu, because of the ultra-conservative nature of much of Benjamin Netanyahu's parliament. So, this isn't just symbolic what's happening right now. I think what we're looking at is real deep-seated momentum for meaningful change in the Middle East. The Middle East will not look the same once this conflict is over.
Blicken wir auch auf den Iran. Der iranische Außenminister warnte davor, dass die Zeit des Redens ablaufe und die Achse des Widerstands zuschlagen könnte. Außerdem führte auch Brigadegeneral Ismail Qani, Chef der Al-Quds-Eliteeinheit der iranischen Revolutionsgarde, Gespräche mit irakischen Paramilitärs und vermutlich auch mit der Hisbollah in Syrien. Wie wahrscheinlich schätzt du die Möglichkeit ein, dass die sogenannte Achse des Widerstands auf so breiter Front gegen Israel zuschlagen könnte? Würden die USA dann tatsächlich auch gegen den Iran vorgehen, wie es beispielsweise Senator Lindsey Graham fordert? Kann die USA überhaupt einen Multifrontenkrieg führen, nachdem so viele Waffen und Munition an die Ukraine geschickt wurde?
Well, first of all, I think people have to take the Iranians seriously. I think it should be said up front that Iran is not looking for a war. Iran didn't start this conflict. This is a conflict that was thrust upon Iran. And they can't sit back because of Israel's escalation in Gaza. They can't sit back and be blind to this. And so there's a real likelihood that if Israel goes forward and continues to carry out the collective punishment of the Palestinian people, or God forbid they decide to intervene and invade Gaza, that there will be a second front that will open up. this will be devastating for the Israelis. The United States, what you'll find is that the 2,000 Marines will be busy evacuating Americans from the region, not attacking Hezbollah or Iran. The United States can't attack Iran. With all due respect to Lindsey Graham, he talks about, how we're going to eliminate Iran's ability to produce oil. Does he not understand that Iran will then eliminate Saudi Arabia's ability to produce oil? The United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, the entire Gulf region will stop producing oil. And that's it for the United States. We don't have a solution to that. The global economy will collapse and will collapse with it. This is why the U.S. military hasn't carried out meaningful actions against Iran in the past. Donald Trump wanted to carry out meaningful military actions in response to the shooting down of a Global Hawk drone over the Strait of Hormuz by Iran. But he was told by the Pentagon that if you bomb Iran and you kill Iranian soldiers, Iran will retaliate against American bases, and then we will have to retaliate. It becomes an escalation, and we don't have the military means to stop this conflict on terms that are acceptable to us. So we shouldn't go to war. Now, that was a reality back in 2019, 2020. The reality still exists. Nothing's changed. It's only gotten worse for the United States because, as you pointed out, we've diverted a tremendous amount of military resources to the European theater and to the Pacific theater. We have less strength available to us today in the Middle East than we did back during Donald Trump's time. And back during Donald Trump's time, it was considered to be suicidal to talk about going to war against Iran.
Jeder Krieg, jeder bewaffnete Konflikt hört eines Tages auf. Was denkst du, wie wird dieser Konflikt aufhören? Selbst wenn es Israel gelingen sollte, die Hamas als Organisation komplett zu zerstören, lässt sich der Gedanke des Widerstandes nicht zerstören, wenn die Ursachen dafür nicht angegangen werden. Wird dieser Konflikt also eingefroren, bis jede Seite seine Wunden geleckt hat und sich für die nächste Runde vorbereitet? Und welche Rolle werden die USA und die EU dabei spielen?
I think we, first of all, need to understand that the United States and the European Union have exhausted themselves in Ukraine. And therefore, there's nothing but words they can offer to Israel. Israel is not positioned to win this conflict. They will lose this conflict decisively. The so-called axis of resistance, Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, Syria, are not going to let this current phase of the conflict end, especially if it escalates, end with the maintenance of the status quo ante. They will be seeking change. And Israel, by losing this war, and they will lose this war, will have no choice but to make the changes necessary if it wants to survive. I think the consequences of this war is that the day of Israeli exceptionalism, the day of the ultra-religious Zionist entity known as Israel, that is built upon the not only subjugation of the Palestinians, but the slaughter of Palestinians, this Israel is over. And there will have to be a new Israel. And I think that out of this conflict, you're going to see a new Israel emerge, one that provides the homeland that the Jewish people want, and some people would say deserve, but not in a way that punishes the Palestinians by denying them similar statehood or a permanent status as second-class citizens. The Israelis are going to have to accept the Palestinians and all Arabs as their equals, something Israel today won't do.
Vielen Dank, Scott, wie immer, für deine Zeit und deine aufschlussreichen Analysen. Wir freuen uns schon auf nächste Woche.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Dankeschön. Tschüss. Meine lieben Zuschauer, auch an euch herzlichen Dank fürs Zusehen. Wenn euch das Video gefallen hat, dann teilt es doch bitte breit in den sozialen Medien, abonniert noch unseren Kanal Gegenpol, folgt uns unbedingt auch auf Odyssey oder X, ehemals Twitter, und vor allem, wenn ihr mal Fragen habt, die wir unbedingt an Scott Ritter stellen sollen, dann schreibt sie uns doch in die Kommentare. Ich freue mich auf euch. Bis dahin, eure Monique.